Kerr asked Villa to come at the weekend, and the players who didn't make the travel, the long journey, will be pleased at the break. But how do you see Manchester United progressing in the Europa League? Because as Solskjaer himself said, Brian, in the build-up to this game, they're not in the title race. The Europa League is actually very important to them.
It is, but they've put progression out of the way without doing anything tonight, because I think it was important where they finished first or second. He'd have put out a much stronger team. I don't think it's good for Lingard to replay tonight. It means he's very unlikely to start the weekend away to Villa. But, as we have seen with Manchester United and Chelsea and Arsenal in recent seasons, they play the two horses at the one time through February, March, when the knockout rounds get going. They try to keep going in the table and make the top four positions in the Premier League while playing mixed teams that are good enough to win the knockout rounds. And then when they get to the quarter final, they get very serious because they see the chance of winning with only 5 games to go in the Europa League. And their picture around the Premier League can often be slightly clearer. And then they go for it, either one way or the other. They put a lot more emphasis on the Europa League. And I think that's how it'll be with Manchester United this year, because I think it's going to be very difficult for them to make the top four from the position they're at the moment. They're so far behind. And as it goes on, they will put more emphasis on this competition, as Mourinho did when he was the manager, and they ultimately won it by beating Ajax in the final. But we've seen that with Arsenal and with Chelsea last year, ended up meeting each other in the final and Chelsea winning the competition.
It didn't do much for Louis van Gaal, but winning a trophy, usually means the coach gets to stay on. Does Solskjaer need to achieve something this season? If it's not top four, does he have to win a cup? I mean, with Pochettino waiting in the wings, and who knows who else could be in contention?
Yeah, it's difficult for him. It's looking like the mountain is getting higher from all the time to climb and convince and prove that he's worthy of a long stay at the club, and that he's worthy of putting in his stamp all over the club over the next couple of years. I mean, let's look back at, you go right back, okay, we talk about him all the time, Sir Alex Ferguson, but it took him a long time to get that stamp going, and it was a different time, different era, different approach. And the modern game and the modern day does not allow you that time. And that's my big fear for him, that somebody there will go, right, enough's enough, and he'll get pulled before he really gets the full hang of the job and gets the recruitment policy in place, because that's been dreadful at Manchester United. The money they've spent, Mourinho can Jose can sort of claim a little bit of fault there. Now, he might argue that he wasn't 100% behind all of the signings that were made, but he's inherited a really disparate dressing room, and he got it going lovely just because the shadow of Jose had lifted and he could make them feel better. But having said that, it soon settled back down into being a really tough sort of treacle, I should say, that he's trying to get the club out of. It's a huge, big ship. I've said it many times, in dry dock, trying to turn it, push it out to sea. It is so tough. And until you get your recruitment right, you can't do that. So is he going to be given enough time? Can you see them turn around and give him the backing and say this January, right, we've a whole new sort of idea in place? Because Woodward has spoken about that recently. He said, we're having a full review, and we're going to come up with something totally different for the club where it is right now. Does it include the current manager and him being given the power to do that, or will it be another third party that will come in and tell him what players to get that he doesn't really want, who don't understand the inner workings of the dressing room? There's so much. It's so fraught. I mean, it really is difficult. I hope for his sake, he's a good lad, that he's given the time. But every time there's a defeat, it's another, I suppose, another sort of niche on the people who'd say, he's too young, get him out, and they'll. He really needs the hierarchy to believe in him mid to long term, and not look at the 3-4 matches.
All right, well, much for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to consider on his way back on the long flight back to Manchester.